Yes, you can start now.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. Now, as we start from the ayah number 89, we must remember that in the last ruku, the Quran, it talked about the month of Ramadan and the haram months, which is part of the haram month. Okay, so now let's start from here. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ, and they ask you about the new moons. Now, the new moons announce the coming of both Ramadan and Hajj. Now, there are 5 pillars of Islam, right? So the only ones that require timing, like for example, like the days, or there are specific days, Hajj and Ramadan from all of the 5. So the lunar months are are there just so that we can know when to fast and when to perform Hajj. Now, remember that last thing about these are signs for marking times. These are not times for marking the signs. Okay, these are signs for marking the times. It's like it's not that the months are happening because of the moon, because the new moon doesn't show up on these months. It's because these months are happening, the moon doesn't show up, just so that Allah can make sense of Islam, just so that it may be easier for us to follow. Now, they are indicative of time for the people and of pilgrimage. Apart from Hajj, every month of the Islamic calendar begins with a new moon, a visible beginning, unlike the solar months, and thus a firm reminder to Muslims at large about their religious obligations. Now, there was a special reason for bringing in the new moon theme in connection with Hajj. This was that since the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, okay, or these times, all the lunar calendar, it existed before Islam. It existed since the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, maybe even before that. So the three Hajj months, and the 3 Hajj months, which are Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hajj, and Muharram, and Rajab. The Rajab is the 4th one, were considered sacred, during which the perpetual fighting among the tribes of Arabia had to cease. This was a pagan tradition, by the way, the pagan, the Jahilin. This tradition was continued by Islam. Now, that not only signified the great sacredness of Hajj, but was also a necessary practical measure to enable pilgrims to travel to Mecca and back with security. Often, however, when the fighting spilled over in pagan times, now what they did, like, look at their audacity. Okay, so when the tribes were concerned, not willing to defer their hostilities, would get over the difficulty by postponing the sacred months, by giving it the name of some non-sacred month. For example, like if there has to be some battle in Rajab, okay, and fighting in that month is forbidden, what they will do is they will swap the months with Shawwal. Now, like, for example, they will say that now it's Shawwal, and in Shawwal will make it Rajab. They used to swap it. Now the 2 months exchange places, as it were. And the tribes kept up the empty form of the ban by not fighting during the displaced sacred month. This device was also useful in enabling the Bedouins to loot unsuspecting travelers who naturally thought they were safe in a sacred month. Now, some of them didn't know that there was a swapping of the sacred month. The declaration here is that the month starts with its own new moon. It is meant to indicate that the moon is the definitive announcement of a month. A particular month cannot be switched by a human decree to any other part of the year, and it is not righteousness. Now, وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَنْ تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا. Now, it is not righteousness that you go to the houses from their backs. Now, the pagan Arabs, after they had put the 2-sheet dress, the ihram, in preparation for Hajj, would not enter their own houses by the front doors, considering this avoidance to be an act of piety or an act of righteousness, even going to the extent of making a hole in the mud wall if no other entry was available in the rear of the house. Now, this was now forbidden, clearly signifying that trivial and pointless rituals, this was stupidity, complete stupidity, apparently harmless in themselves, should not be introduced into religion. All these fall in the category of bid'ah, or harmful and prohibited innovations. In the next ayah we say وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Now these in the rest of the ayat of this ruku, these are very controversial ayat. Now those who blame Islam for being a violent religion, they use these ayat as evidence. And when they use it, like it's if they would read it clearly, they would understand that it's clearly a religion that is advocating for peace and prosperity, but they still somehow manage to put it into the context of violence. So وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ, and fight in the way of Allah those who fight you, not anyone. Just like the four forbidden months, the location of the Kaaba was also sacred, fighting and killing being forbidden there at all times too, from the days of Ibrahim alayhi salam. This again in the year 6 Hijrah, we know this as the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And in the sacred month of Zilqa'idah, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along with a large number of his companions, set out to perform the lesser pilgrimage, the Umrah. When the party neared Mecca, its inhabitants, the Quraysh, came out determined to fight and stop them. But the Muslims denied. They said, we will not fight you. The negotiations, there was negotiations, and it was decided that the Muslims would go back in that year without entering Mecca. And like many people say that this was like an unfair treaty, but they had to give it up because they did not want to fight in the holy month near Mecca. Now, when the Muslims started their preparation for the journey next year, there were indications that the unbelievers going back on their pact would again try to forcibly stop them, but the Muslims were forbidden to fight under a double ban, which was that both the territory and the months were sacred and were naturally in a dilemma. Now, this verse tells them that if the believers broke their word and started fighting, the Muslims were allowed to defend themselves, but do not transgress. وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ does not love them. It also means that he hates them. He completely hates them. And transgressors are not from among us. This is the core teaching of Islamic jihad. Observe the rules of Islamic warfare. For instance, spare non-combatants. Now, you're only supposed to kill those who are fighting you directly. Now, not those who are not in the battlefield but in their home, and you're going to go and kill them. That's completely forbidden. And women and children and old people are all exempted from this. And you do not kill them even if they're taking part in the battle. And do not initiate fighting in the forbidden territory. Never. It is haram upon you to fight in the forbidden territory or in the forbidden months. In Arabic, the sacred mosque and haram and its pretense. وَقْتَلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ, and kill them wherever you see them. This was the ayah I was talking about when they use this as evidence against Islam, but it only shows us their ignorance and nothing else. من حيث خرجتم وأخرجوهم من حيث أخرجوكم والفتنة أشد من القتل. And kill them wherever you find them and drive them out from where they drove you out. Kill them in the course of fighting, not even inside the haram. Okay, this is what it means. And by the way, now when them is referred most of the time, very commonly in the Quran, a few ayahs back or one ayah back, the context of it is given. Now, the first ayah that we started from, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ, and they ask you. So if we go a few ayahs back to the last ruku, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Fasting is prescribed. Fasting is obliged to you just as it was obliged to those before you. Those before you were Bani Israel. And وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ, and they ask, they means Bani Israel that were living in Medina. They used to ask many questions, like the name of the surah indicates it, Al-Baqarah. The name of this, the reason this is the name of the surah is because just to show that many times in the surah it is shown that the Jews are so ignorant, like just for a cow they would give up their Lord and their message and everything. Now this and so here when it says وَقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ, it's talking about the people in the last ayah. وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حتى kill them if they kill you. They, who is they? Who now here it is talking about the Quraysh, but it is also an, it is all, these ayahs are always to be used. These kind of rulings will never change. Islam is a religion that never changes. Now this verse tells them that if the unbelievers broke their word and started fighting, the Muslims were allowed to defend themselves, and but do not fight near the mosque until they fight you. Then you may kill them. The only part of the ban remaining as regards the sacred territory is that Muslims would not initiate fighting in the Haram. When Mecca was finally conquered, the Prophet extended security to all its inhabitants, with the exception of those who attacked Muslims, of course. But the peace, the sheer longing for peace for Muslims, like they did not want to fight. None of them wanted to fight. They wanted to avoid bloodshed at all costs. فإن انتهوا فإن الله غفور رحيم. And if they desist, then indeed Allah is the often more forgiving. وقاتلوهم حتى لا تكون فتنة. And fight them until persecution is no more and religion is for Allah. But if they desist, then there shall be no hostility except against the wrongdoers. Now, fighting itself was prescribed not to make unbelievers embrace Islam. There's no compulsion in religion. We all know that. But to stop them from persecuting the believers and pressuring men to give up their faith. Hostilities against them are to continue till they give up such activities. In modern day, these transgressors can be named, namely Israel, like Israel, China, and USA too. Yeah, they do it not in their country, but in other countries. And those who fight them are like Al-Qassam, Al-Hamas, Da'watul Islamiyya, and there are the Dawlatul Islamiyya, and there are many organizations, and we can't support all of them entirely because many of them are wrong in many ways. But the thing is, and especially now that we're in a warfare with Israel, the thing is here, when you say that they're killing civilians, Hamas is killing civilians, it's wrong. It is not wrong. وقاتلوهم حتى لا تكون فتنة ويكون الدين لله. It says this, and what else does it say? It says that kill them when they kill you. So killing civilians, non-combatants is of course a sin, but are they really non-combatants? The thing now, this is like a huge gift for us, that this ayah was introduced. Kill them only that those who kill you, right? So in Israel, they have made this law that every Israeli citizen has to serve in the IDF, in the Israeli defense, so-called defense organization. So it is easy for us. So like we have no obligations against them. We can kill, like we can, all of them are guilty. None of them are innocent. That's what I'm saying, except of course the children and the women who did not participate. Hostilities against them are to continue till they give up such activities. But when they stop fighting and persecution stops and the religion of Allah prevails, then you should not take up arms against them. الشهر الحرام بالشهر الحرام والحرمات قصاص. The sacred month for the sacred month, and for the violation of the prohibited things, there is legal retribution, qiyas, law of equality. So whoever has transgressed against you, then you transgress against him in the same way that he has transgressed against you. And fear Allah and know that Allah is with those who are righteous. Now when it says transgress against those who transgress against you, it means that it means an eye for an eye. Islam supports this. But against you, and fear Allah and know that Allah is with those who are righteous. You are allowed to take revenge in Islam. You are allowed to retaliate. You are allowed to do all that. You are allowed to react. But the thing is, if you forgive them, if you have one, and like there are those that are guilty, but you want to forgive them, then Allah is those who are with those who are righteous. You will be from the righteous. This is what it means, the importance. Now, the sacred month, now the unbelievers, in return for the sacred month they had violated in the 6th year, after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when they stopped the Muslims from doing the Umrah, they had offered them a sacred month this year in which they could do Umrah, and the Muslims did right to accept the exchange in the interest of peace. However, if the unbelievers now broke the sanctity of the sacred month, then the Muslims were allowed to retaliate. Okay, if you're not being allowed to practice your religion, especially in the holy lands like Mecca, Medina, Al-Quds, Jerusalem, then you are allowed to retaliate, or else there is no, even in the forbidden places and the forbidden months, you are allowed to retaliate, but there's no other excuses, just if you're being persecuted. However, if the unbelief Muslims were only allowed to retaliate in good measure, but in all circumstances to fear Allah. وأنفقوا في سبيل الله ولا تلقوا وأنفقوا في سبيل الله ولا تلقوا بأيديكم إلى التهلكة. And spend for the cause of Allah, and cast not yourselves by your own hands into destructions, but do good. This refers to spending for jihad, the holy war. Not to spend in such a cause is equivalent to spiritual death and also political destruction, because the enemy would be spending on his arms and you would not be spending. So when we donate, we must donate to great causes that are actually fighting, and we know we can trust them. We can trust them, and we can put our money in them, we can put our faith in them, so that they can lead the ummah. Because if you do not help them, the enemy keeps growing. The enemy keeps getting its funds from the Ikhwan al-Shayateen. They will keep getting their money. But if you must put your money into this cause. And jihad, by the way, is there are two types of fard, right? Fara'id. There are two types of obligations. It's one is fard kifayah, and the other is fard ayn or fard muayyan. The first one, fard kifayah, is like if anyone in a community does it, it's okay. Like if one man in an entire community does it, or an entire organization does it, it's enough. But fard ayn is the one that every single man has to do, like salah, zakat, and stuff, and hajj, and so on, with the 5 pillars. So jihad is a fard ayn. Every single man has to contribute to jihad in any way possible, like with verbally, or with a pen, or maybe you can donate to them. If you're not in the position to go and fight, you must, at least, the least you can do is donate to them. وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ. Perform Hajj and Umrah for the sake of Allah. The discussion now passes on to detailed observances of Hajj and Umrah. And if you are prevented from doing this, send an offering such as you can afford. Whatever you can afford, send this. The intention to perform Hajj and Umrah should be fulfilled once the special dress has been donned. The special dress meaning the ihram. But if someone is prevented from performing Hajj or Umrah by illness or enemy action meaning war, or like someone waging war against you or something, but which we don't really have here, nothing is stopping us today, but it might later on, then he should send a sacrificial animal through someone to the haram. The minimum is a sheep or a goat. It could be a cow or a camel or any other halal animal, and should wait. When he is sure that the sacrifice has been performed in the sacred precincts, only then should he shave his head, which is the rite normally performed at the conclusion of the Hajj, right? But if any one of you is ill, or he has an ailment of the head, then there is a ransom, like meaning if you cannot shave your head due to an illness, then there is a ransom. Either fast or give alms, or offer a sacrifice. Again, it is normally forbidden for you to use scissors or a razor after the ihram has been put on. But if someone is ill or has a disease or a wound which makes it necessary to shave the head, and the ihram has not yet been taken off, then this condition is relaxed too. But he must make amends by either fasting 3 days or feeding 6 needy persons. Now look at how much Islam has been made easy for us. Now in the previous ruku we talked about Ramadan, we talked about how the previous ummas, how hard they had it, and here we're talking about Hajj and how easy it has been made for us. Or you can also pay the ransom by sacrificing an animal. Then whoever avails the advantage of combining Umrah with Hajj must make an animal offering such as he can afford. Like if the pilgrim performs both Hajj and Umrah together, it becomes obligatory on him to sacrifice a goat or a sheep or a seventh share in a cow or a camel, irrespective of whether he performs Quran. Quran meaning Hajj and Umrah in the same ihram, or and the second is Tamattu. Comes out of when he comes out of ihram after performing Umrah, it enters the state of ihram again for performing Hajj. This sacrifice by pilgrim this sacrifice by the pilgrim who performs Quran or Tamattu is a token of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for enabling him to combine Hajj and Umrah in a single journey to Mecca. But if he cannot afford one, then let him fast for 3 days during Hajj and for 7 days after returning. If the pilgrim who performs Qiran or Tamattu is not able to sacrifice an animal, he should fast for 3 days during Hajj, ending on the day of Arafah, 9th of Zilhajj, and 7 days after completing his Hajj, making a total of 10. This is for him whose family does not reside near Haram. The permission to perform Qiran and Tamattu is uh, is only for those whose family does not reside within the Haram. Like for example, if you live in Mecca or you live in Medina, these rules are not for you. It is very easy for you to just go and perform Hajj or Umrah, mm, which uh, those living within the boundaries of the Haram can only perform Ifrad Hajj, which means donning the Ihram for Hajj alone. Umrah, which is not obligatory on the pilgrims doing the Ifrad Hajj, can only be performed after the completion of Hajj. And with that, we rest it for today. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك تبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك وسبحان الله عما يصفون والحمد لله رب العالمين.